Well, hi, and thanks so much for joining me here in my shop. So I'm back to the point where I want to test the radio and the amplifier before doing any work on them. Aside from changing one tube, I changed one tube in here, and of course I fixed up the speaker now, so we can operate this. Now, I had discovered that switching from radio to phono introduced a large pop in the speaker. What made me very curious was the speaker cone would move, but it wouldn't go back. It would move out, and then of course it's getting jammed by all the dirt that was in there, so that's fixed. Probably that pop is not that serious a thing, but I'm going to avoid making it strike the speaker for now. What I'll do is when I want to change from radio to phone, I'll just shut the whole set off. Hopefully there's no pop with that. So let's get the power ready here. Okay. Okay, double check a couple things. Volume is low. This switches over to what I'm sure is phono. The owner communicated with me, and Mr. R communicated and said, this switch, this way for radio, that way for amplifier, so or phono. So we have it there. I have a couple signals ready to be put into the radio or the amplifier. One is a audio signal around 650 hertz. That's hooked up to the phono input. And then I also have a radio frequency signal here at 962 kilohertz, roughly the middle of the band here, roughly here, which we can try to pick up with the radio. And lastly, another thing I did off camera was I double checked, like there's terminals out the back, right? Terminals for the phono and terminals for the antenna. I checked to see which terminal, if any, are tied back directly to the chassis. I studied the schematic and I took out my ohm meter and I determined which of the two leads here and the two leads here are actually connections right to the chassis in here. And I've made those my ground connections. I'm going to try to use the black wire here to remind myself of what's up, because I'm hooking up this piece of equipment and this piece of equipment, and the ground is the same wire, electrically the same on those. So I gotta just be a little bit cautious about what I'm doing with it. Otherwise, I think we're completely ready to go here. So the switch is currently off. Let's apply a little power. Just checking everything, including my little voltmeter, 124 volts. I think we're ready to go. Switch on. Going through the lights there. There we go. It's another exciting moment in here. So we're on a restricted power because of these two lights in the dim bulb system, so there's a good chance this won't come to light. Let's see, we got 71 volts going on this AC. So it's not very likely to come to full life. But there's nothing bad happening, so we'll flip it on to full power. And again, volume is down. Maybe I turn the volume up. Now you see, so I think some of these tubes are not conducting. There's just not enough heat in the heaters and everything. There we go. There's going to be enough heat now. This guy's bright. I can hear a new hum. Don't know if it's this collection of transformers are out of the speaker. I think there's a slight hum there. Okay, up on the volume. Remember, we're listening to this. No, sorry, we're listening to this guy. Very low output power right now. Turn up the volume. Okay, turn down the volume. We'll turn up the input level. Start wondering what's happening. Oh, I know what's happening. It's working. Excellent. Just to convince you of that. Excellent. Sounds like a little distortion right there. High frequency response, it's all there. Excellent. Okay, that's a lucky break. Now I'm going to switch it over to radio. Let's check this volume first. I got the impression this wasn't doing anything. It is not. Now that's either because this volume doesn't do anything when you play a record. There's another control somehow, somewhere. Maybe on the record player itself. Doesn't quite make sense to me. What can I do? Doesn't make any difference. No volume control effect. And there's a switch sound in here. Listen. Listen. Let me hear it again. So it sounds like there's a switch operating off the back of this. Okay. Not much more we can do with the amplifier right now. Let's switch to radio. I'm going to switch it off. Switch over. It's a funny switch. Switch on. Now, if the volume control is stuck wide open or something, this might get a little uncomfortable. Doesn't seem to be the case. Now, we're not on a regular antenna. We're on the output of this signal generator. 962, right now there's a moderate signal coming to it that a radio like this should respond to. Okay, so I think rather than tune the radio, I'm going to tune the signal generator. We'll turn the volume up. Oh! Look at that. Unbelievable. Just as Mr. R said, this thing works. Okay, I will tune the radio. Turn this down. So the carrier's right in here. It doesn't seem to be detecting the tone. Oh, it's there. Let me get a better camera on here so you can get a good look at the tuning and listen to what's happening at the same time. Okay, bear with me while I just kind of work this into place here. Let's take a look at that. So for the first time, I'm seeing that there's words written up here. They almost look penciled in, you know. So over here, is that on camera? Yeah, you can see W-E something or other. So someone has, this is probably the proper procedure, has written local stations across here. Because the interesting thing is, if you look at the tuning window here, it's drawing your eye up here. You're supposed to be looking through this window where you'd see the words written, like here, or here. Here it's W-I-P, I don't know what the W-F-I something. How come only 3 letters on all these? They're all W-W this. Where's the Canadian stuff? There's no Canadian stuff. So that's where they want your eye to go, right in the slot here, and read these words. The frequency across here is much less important to the ooh. Okay. Now these radios are very interesting. This is not a super hit radio. This is a very simple what's called a tuned radio frequency receiver. There is no intermediate frequency. And because there's no frequency conversion in the intermediate frequency, there's an awful lot of problems don't occur with this radio that occur in more modern heterodyne styled radios. So for instance, I may not hear as much noise out of my shop environment. This will give me a more realistic view of what it is. Let's go listening. Now, what am I hooked up to? I'm not really hooked up to an antenna here, right? I'm just hooked up to the signal generator, which is a terrible. Wow. it's the same old noise. So I think the fun thing to do now is to switch to an antenna. And I'm going to pull this back a little bit so you can get the whole dial view. I'm going to go, well, I don't have to go. I'm going to connect the antenna here. Okay, so I was just connecting up my signal generator. I went to connect it, and what is this? This is only half the connector. Oh my gosh, the whole thing has come apart. Well, okay. We need another one. This one has completely come apart. Okay, another one. Wasn't expecting that. Okay, here comes the antenna. Now, something smells very, very hot in here now. Wow, okay, that's blasting a signal onto this. Who's cooking here? There's really a lot of heat just from these 3 tubes here. I think that's all I'm smelling. That doesn't smell like smoke. Okay, let's check this out now. A little bit of challenges with the camera itself. Okay. Bit of an angle, but it's okay. A little louder on, whoops, on this end. 640 or 590. Let's try 590. Oh. Seems to be some play in the tuning. There's slippage in the knob I'm rotating too. What frequency is that? I guess it's 640. It's right on the 640 spot on the dial. That would be great. I think we can find out just by oh yeah, I gotta get that. Okay, so a piece of my last test cord stayed in here. A little project for this afternoon. Fix my lead. Another lead. Don't tug on these so hard, Jim. Oops. Okay, so this is hooking up the ground to the ground here. Oh, that changed it, didn't it? So I'm not sure why that would kill it. Let's take it off. Put the signal portion on. And we think we're around 640. What was that pop? Gotta hear this now. It's right there. $640 it is. So the dial very accurate. Well, okay. Something about this volume control, it sounded to me like the tone was changing a lot as I turned this. In fact, what it sounded like to me, it sounded like the tuning characteristic curve, if you like, was getting tighter. That's what it sounded like to me. You know what? Let's put the loop antenna on this radio and see just what it does with a really good antenna instead of the scratchy wire antenna it's on now. Okay, I'll hook up this antenna, then I'll spin the camera around and show you what it is. Let's just make sure of something here. Son of a gun. So I've forgotten which one's the ground. I don't want to make mistakes doing this, so we'll recheck. So I took that black wire off and immediately forgot. That one shows ground. This one shows open. Not sure that's correct. They're both supposed to show, one should show nothing and the other one should show, like one should show 0 and the other one should show a little something, I think. Okay. So loop antenna. It really doesn't matter on a loop antenna. I would imagine it doesn't matter. Getting this correct. Just want to be consistent. Put that like that. Good. Okay, loop antenna connected. Absolutely nothing. Oh, there's a little bit there. Turned up full. Tune the radio here. Just fade out. Okay, nothing happening there. Now I'll show you the antenna that we're using now. Gone from a wire in my backyard to this guy here. Just a big loop, a few turns of wire. There's a certain way you construct these. These are tunable antennas, so I'm going to tune it and just listen to the signal while I tune it.
Every moving part, everything has a connection. Often enough, potentially, it could break that wiring harness. So wiring harness is going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and a lot of people just walk away from this. What thousands and thousands and thousands?
Hey, what happened there? So this is now tuned in so the antenna cannot pick up the station. It's tuned turned the wrong way.
You know, I was driving. It was a Range Rover Sport a few years back, Mike, and every Saturday morning when I was coming to work, because that's the only time I take.
Now this feeds a strong signal at the tune point at the radio with little noise. That's the beauty of these antennas. The problem is they're very directional and they have to be tuned fairly precisely. But this is what you get out of this now.
Trying to find this. We couldn't. I gave up.
So when I turn this, the impression I get here is that I know there's 4 simultaneously tuned things going on in there. As you turn the knob, you're trying to move all 4 of these things the same amount or some relative amount. It looks to me like there's play. So when I first start to turn it, some of these guys aren't moving because there's play. There's play and the mechanics going to them. So consequently, they're all kind of waving around a little bit. When you tune it to a spot, they're not necessarily fixed in their perfectly aligned position. The reason I get that impression is as I tune back and forth, the tuning curve seems totally different. This doesn't seem. It's just not so. As for the actual radio sound, it's pretty darn good. So this is what people were listening to in 1929.
Well, you see, here's the thing though. When you trade the vehicle in and there is an intermittent electrical problem, the vehicle is going to be appraised by the dealership.
The huge advantage of this radio, and right at this time, 1929, was going from multiple tuning, where you had to tune each of these stages with different knobs, get them all tuned, and then you could listen, to where engineers had figured out how to mechanically link all these different tunings so one knob would do the trick. And this is one of the first implementations of that. And I think early on, maybe my first video, I said this was reluctance tuned. I don't think it is. I think it's tuned by capacitors inside, and we're going to find all this out. So I've let this play a long time. Wow, it's very stable. What else can we pick up? Let's see if we can pick up any other stations here. I'm sure we can. This is actually 680. Showing up at 670. Really close. Well, I could tune the antenna here a little bit too.
Exposure on weekend time with 407 ETR. Your best choice.
Okay, more than a little bit.
407 wegr.com. As a business owner, we rely on the internet for
Back in the day, these radios would have this kind of loop antenna hooked up to them. They put a long wire antenna out the back of their house, they'd probably get a very similar result because they weren't fighting, 10,000 computer circuits that are spewing noise everywhere of all sorts. Remember, back then, the radio spectrum was very silent, other than natural noises. Seems like you can spot the carrier pretty easily. I think that's noise. Okay, so we're out of the tuned range of the antenna now. So let me retune the antenna. Of course, all we're tuning in is noise, but the tuning of the antenna is very similar to in sharpness to this. Say 840, so 840 be about here, I think. Can we get it? Last part I was reorienting the antenna. You could hear it picking up noise, not picking up noise, but no, there's that pop again. Here's something. It's the French station. Tiré de l'album de contexte Bastion qui va sortir il y a à peine un mois. Alors, je sais que je vais parler de toi, là. Comme le moment dans la chanson où le son a arrêté. On sait les trois, regardez. Okay, just fixing the volume there.
Est-ce que je dis quelque chose ou je... Alors, le musée des beaux-arts de l'Ontario consacre l'étage presque 50 ans déjà, et 81 ans, elle a présenté elle-même aux médias son exposition. C'était charmant de pouvoir entendre cette dame qui est désinvolte, qui est grec de ce monde positif. Oh, de ça parle assez longtemps que je vous parle de ça, je pense la prochaine fois. Vraiment sans prétention.
Okay, so it's been very interesting. Clearly, when it comes to this radio, my role is to do it no harm, because it's working really quite well right now. I'm guessing if we put the other original tube back in here, the one that only showed up with a very, very low transconductance, the radio probably wouldn't work. But it sure doesn't seem to be weak in any particular way. The amplifier doesn't seem to be weak. There's nothing humming here, there's no horrible crackly, and there's nothing. Everything's really pretty good. So my challenge is to do no harm to this radio while it's here. Fantastic. That's great. That's great for today. Now I'm off to do outdoor yard work on a nice, sort of warm, but sunny day. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll be thinking hard about the next step. It's probably going to be trying to remove or replace components that whose life is precarious. Let's put it that way. Maybe put it that way. Great. See you on the next video.